Well, you guys are in for a treat. It's often where we get a chance to just meet like the inner heart and inner soul of the people we get to connect with, partly because Sonya is so good at helping people, share from that place of authenticity. And Steve Wiltshire is just this beautiful man. He has a history in the bodybuilding field, and he talks about his journey and his story and that of his partner and how they move through their healing journey and what he's doing now to help millions of people all over the world.
Yeah, there's so many gems in the interview, and simple habits that we can bring into our mornings, to how we're nourishing ourselves or how we're depleting ourselves, and just how we're all on a journey. And the number one thing that I think really helps us evolve in our journey is the ability to forgive oneself and others. So we really tap into not only the physical form, but we're really talking about the spiritual and the emotional, and how all of that interplay will impact your health.
Yeah.
From breast cancer to autoimmunity to all of it.
Yeah, it's a mixture of so many things. It's the spirit, it's the emotional body, it's the mindset, it's the physicality, it's whether or not the supplements you're taking are even serving you, or whether or not the fillers and some of the additives that are in there could be perpetuating or turning on illness in the body. So yeah, there's something in here for everybody.
Yeah, lots of gems. So enjoy.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Health Ignited. I'm here with my amazing partner, Dr. Sonya Jensen, and we just got some sun on the weekend. I don't know where you guys are in the world, where you're tuning in from, but it's like summer finally landed in the Vancouver, British Columbia area.
Yeah, it creates a little bit of anxiety sometimes for us too. It's like, if the sun is out, we have to be out all day, every day until it's gone again. So it's just been so nice to get that vitamin D.
It is, yeah, and spend time with friends, right? We so much of what we do on this podcast is really about sharing stories, diving into the deeper why, helping people cultivate those questions within themselves. And today's guest is really a gift. Sometimes we get a chance to run across these amazing human beings and really dive into a story. And Steve, who we've got on the show today, is going to help us all remember why it's so important to investigate, look deeper into your health, ask those questions, and make room for some play, and make room for that sun and those sunny times in our life, but also be willing to investigate some of those darker periods. So I'm just going to open up his bio here. We're going to introduce him onto the show. At first glance, when we get to meet Steve, you see this big guy. He obviously takes care of himself. He's in his 50s, but he's got this amazing history of being a fitness and health guru, basically. I mean, he started with bodybuilding, won Mr. Oregon, but at some point along his journey, which he's going to dive into great detail, he stumbled across an autoimmune illness. And so many of the people that we work with in our clinic, sometimes there's sort of two directions one can go. And that is, oh, shoot, I've got an autoimmune illness. Oh, well, life goes on. I'll get the med for that. And then option number two is like, wait a second, my body is attacking itself. There's something really wrong here. And I'm going to take lead and really dive into what's actually going on. And Steve, as he will tell in his story, well, you can guess which one he chose. But Steve, please share your story. Thank you so much for being here. And why did you choose one path over the other? And was there even really a second thought on that one?
Well, I first want to say, gosh, you're 6 hours away from me. I was thinking all through June, being a boater of many years, thinking, where's the sun this year? It's like going back on this 20-year cycle. I'm like, oh no, we would go all June and have a lot of rain. I'm in Portland, Oregon.
Yeah. So we're neighbors, right?
Oh, yeah. Similar
climates.
And one of my very favorite words is ignite. I love your podcast. And I want to throw out that you two are doing just beautiful work in the world. And everyone that's listening, you're in the right place. I don't use this word very often, but what I see with the Jensens is they're purists. And when we come from that place of purity, we know we have a message to deliver. And we have this elevated state of joy and conviction to share that message. So I really thank you for the gift that you are to all your listeners. And I cannot wait to share all your programs and also share your podcast. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Steve, you're a beautiful man. Thanks for warming us up for the show.
I just tell the truth.
Yeah, I know. I love it. Well, it's fun.
Give it
You know,
both ways.
we've said this before in different podcasts too. It's like, sometimes it's the podcast gives you this opportunity to meet your family. You know, see people that are so like-minded, so in alignment with what it is you're doing. And so, you know, it's a gift for the listeners, absolutely, to see a connection happen, but it's also a gift for each of us to be able to really,
it gives hope.
Yeah, it gives hope. Yeah.
That the world is moving in a direction that we can be proud of, and for our children, that things are shifting because mindsets are shifting, paradigms are shifting, and we don't have to get locked into the one that might be creating some fear around just how the world is going right now. So thank you for everything that you're doing.
Yeah, let's stay there. That was great. I loved what you just said. That was so powerful. One of my favorite verses in the Bible, and it's not like I just love it. It's not like I read the Bible all the time. I'm like very much invested in many pathways to spirituality, but it's let your hope make you glad. And whatever you're dealing with today, or the reason that you might be listening to this podcast, many episodes, is you're looking for hope. And when you start to tune in and tap into vision, you start realizing that you are training your brain how to think, and you're elevating your belief in what you want. And that's when all the ideal resources and situations and people start to show up in your area. And I sometimes am awestruck, even with technology, when a YouTube video will show up in my feed. It makes no logical sense. And I'm like, whoa, this is exactly what I needed to attract. So segueing into your question, I start off saying that I know I attracted this into my life because it was part of my contract. And I think of Joan Arc's quote, one of my favorite: "I will not live in fear. I was born for this." And I thought everything that I was doing was great. And most everything that I learned from experts and these radical meal plans that we could translate now to aggressive keto diets or programs and supplements, like, compromised my health. And I had no signs leading up to my illness. I remember being out with my son, and at that time he was about 13, and we were having a vegan meal, and all of a sudden I was just completely bloated. My stomach just was like enlarged. I pulled up my shirt, and he's like, "Dude, what happened to your abs?" Oh my God. And I said, "I really don't feel well. I think there's something wrong." I had pretty close to going into urgent care. And then I just set an appointment, got into my doctor the next day, and had some blood panels taken. And then he responded saying, "Everything looks extraordinary." And I'm like, there's something wrong with me. Every time I ate and drank, I was bloated. Even when I would drink water, I was bloated. And so the good news is, Quinn, our son, his mom was on this pathway to healing herself from 3rd stage cancer and breast cancer. And I was so in this state of wondering why she wasn't getting a mastectomy. That kind of just tells you where I was at that point in my life, thinking, God, are you going to leave your son behind? And we were super, super close. We're both we're in now this new brand called Body Temple. Why I'm on the podcast, one of the reasons I'm on the podcast, going out and sharing my message, but also we had been in this entrepreneur brand. And she was following the philosophy of the Hypocrites Institute in Southern Florida. And this tumor just kept diminishing. And it got to a point where it just evaporated. And not only did she heal herself once, but 7 years later, it came back. And that's when she started to really dive into her psyche and realizing that she had so many limiting beliefs around losing her sister at 19 when Lynn was 12 to breast cancer. And her mother's side, her mom had 8 siblings. She happened to be the youngest and always really took pretty good care of herself, not really having a ton of education, but she just took care of herself, lived on a farm, and all of her siblings died of cancer. So, sometimes we have this adversity card that's just kind of drawn to us. So I just started following her pathway, and she led me to healers that were really disguised as naturopaths. And I ended up getting on these regimens and started plant-based. And I mean, I ended up having to do even a lot of colonics. I had a very serious case of candida. I could not get rid of it. I had brain fog. You know, I was an entrepreneur coach at that time, traveling all over North America, conventions, seminars, and I had never had a problem with brain fog. And so I just like to say to everybody, your part really to do is get your lab work done, and not always through a doctor, but through a naturopath, because the labs are different. You know, celiacs didn't show up, ironically, and the tests that I got from Western medicine, today we could call that in transition, test results from functional medicine. And I had a serious case of celiacs, and celiacs can lead to more challenging autoimmunes. You know, you guys get it. On the bottom of the spectrum is celiacs, on the top is MS. And so it just keeps this focus going until you do something about it.
Yeah, I love that whole story. And I kind of want to go back to your son's mother and her journey and what you witnessed with her, because I think that's really important for everyone to understand. We often talk about how, you know, these traumas and these emotional stories that we carry as imprints in our body will show up in different parts of the body. And in my book, I talk a lot about, you know, even breast tissue, it's all about nurturing. So often if we haven't felt nurtured, or if we haven't felt safe, or something's happened where it's questioned our safety and stability, it may show up in the uterus, or it may show up in the breast, because we have those limiting beliefs, and without even consciously knowing. So I'm curious, with your journey, were you able to unpack what your limiting beliefs may have been, or what your story may have been around digestion? Because often if we're not digesting life well, we're not digesting our food well, and it shows up in this way where it kind of stops us in our tracks when we're not, you know, being true to our core beliefs that maybe we're not even aware are there. So I'm curious if you also went through that same journey.
Two things. Everybody listening, I'd rewind about 2 minutes and listen to exactly what she said. That was poetic. Second, I want the link to that book today. I want to share that book, and I want to buy that book for Lynn, because what you just said proves all your theory and understanding. So what a lot of people don't understand about gut is it's influenced by anxiety and depression. And I was this kid that was slow. I was like a tortoise, but man, I would build momentum, and, you know, always pushed by my parents, you know, always like fake it till you make it, all these old models and limiting beliefs. And, you know, we go the extra mile. This is what we do, you know, go to school, and if the nurse calls me, I'll come pick you up. You're okay, honey, you got this. And so I faked. I never really had depression, even though I wrote this ebook on how I diminished depression and anxiety without drugs. And mainly it was anxiety. I had a tremendous amount of anxiety. Now, if you start to research what's happened since 2020, COVID, to present, the increases in suicide, anxiety, depression, antidepressants have been friggin' over the top, and especially with children. And when children look at their parents and say, "Mommy, my stomach hurts," it means I do not know how to control this anxiety and sadness that I feel within. And so I really acknowledge what you just said, because it just tapped into something that I don't often talk about on these podcasts, that I had to get to a point where I diminished anxiety. And I wrote that ebook, How I Diminished Anxiety and Depression Without Drugs. By the way, it's complimentary. By the way, you can get to it by jumping into our community online called Facebook, Body Temple Community. Just go to the search bar and Body Temple Community. It's right in the file section. Coaches are right there. They'll lead that to you. And many, 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 many pay it forward complimentary resources. But in all of that, what shifted for me was my mother, who had really been just, a rock star in life. Just said, when I was 27, I'm like, they want to get me on antidepressants. I don't understand why. And she said, no, I hadn't worked out. I smoked. I drank a ton of coffee. I was like the ever ready bunny, just going all the time, super successful, but deep down, really not that happy. I didn't know until I hired my first coach, and I worked with, I've always had an executive coach, or I'll just say it, like the ideal coach for me at that time in my life for the last 18 years. I've never not had a coach since I've been 27 years old. And I guess that's going 30 years now that I think about it, 58. So I really had to shift my limiting beliefs. And what did that for me, the primary part that did that for me, was my miracle morning ritual. And I can tell you that nobody gets my morning but me and the universe.
I love that. I mean, having an anchor for your day, a way to be in relationship with yourself, right? I mean, how many people are walking through life just completely disconnected? Before we got on the call, we were saying, that's one of the number one reasons why, illness steps in. It's a way, it's a vehicle to reconnect to ourselves. So to walk us through that morning routine, because obviously that was part of your healing journey. Tell us about the miracle morning, please.
Yeah, I think what I'll lead into is that it's just something that we're always working with clients. And I've been an entrepreneur coach, and I'm phasing out of that, almost there, but for about 22 years, several coaches and working with entrepreneurs, and more said mindset coach. And they would hire us to build successful, thriving companies or organizations, a lot of entrepreneurs. And but realized that it was also about life coaching. What caught their interest was performance, and increases in volume, proficiency. But they learned that happiness it's all inclusive. Who we are in one area of our life is how we show up in other areas of our life. And so it's so similar to what we do in Body Temple when I'm working with a client on how to train the brain, how to think, how to shift poor habits to ideal habits and notice those triggers. So we have 4 commonalities, right? We have physical, spiritual, we have professional, income, and we have a relational. And so when you start to think about what you want in those 4 areas of your life, it pretty much summarizes your life. And then when you start to notice contrast, what does that mean? We're walking our path every day, and we're noticing wanted and unwanted conditions show up in our lives. And when we see unwanted conditions, we often step into fear instead of being receptive and thinking, what do I want? All right, so I have this circumstantial situation, and that's circumstantial power. I can't control that. I control my thinking, my attitude, my disposition, my actions. And that's when we feel a sense of personal power. I'm going to go on a little tangent and finish in about a minute and a half, 2 minutes. But I've never heard anybody say, and it came up for me in meditation several years ago, is that the greatest gift from the universe, excuse me, God, whatever you want to call it, Jesus, Buddha, higher self, you have a soul that's tapped into that's 2 steps ahead of you. And when you start to think about the physical body, the frontal lobe is what separates us from animals. We feel flight and fight like animals. It's called the primal brain. And our frontal lobe is 40% of our brain. The capacity for awareness is so deep that scientists say it has a capacity of about 1 trillion megabytes if we were to translate that into something we would understand. But most human beings are operating from about 2,000. And so it's that time you spend by yourself. And there's a lot to it. I have a miracle morning ritual that is all in writing in the community, Body Temple community file section. But I will tell you that, when I first started to learn how to calm my mind, what really the person that really changed my life was Joe Dispenza. And I started to slow down, and I started to just listen and breathe. And then for most people, it's going on YouTube and listening to just finding your favorite, finding your favorite guided meditations. But meditation at its best, like an Esther Hicks would say, is doing the thing that you love to do, where you lose sight of time. And so I always have my miracle morning ritual, but I'm constantly changing my mantra. Like my mantra for the last 6 weeks is deliberate creation is a thing. I'm conscious about my thinking, my emotions, my feelings. I'm receptive to everything coming at me. It's a gift. And I see it as a gift, unwanted and wanted conditions. And I'm going to keep my brain focused on what I want, not what I don't want. I'm tapped in, tuned into spirit. It's guiding me all the time. Fourth, I focus on good feeling thoughts. Last, when I have diminished emotions, I ask myself, what am I broadcasting? So there's many different ways with a morning ritual, but it's just scheduling that time. And it's like, it goes into stages. Like it starts with elementary, and then it goes into like junior high, and then it goes into like high school. And after a while, you just start noticing you're just being guided. And that's when you just feel this love and presence that is just can't even be explained.
Something that makes me think of one of Sonya's quotes here is just, the morning ritual, we call it sadhana, or, your morning practice, whatever that is. It's a way to fall in love with yourself again.
Oh.
And when I read your quote on the wall, it's like the only way to do great work is to love what you do. And, if we can give ourselves that space to really fall in love with ourselves again, really to be in that presence, to learn about who we actually are, because so much of our conditioning, so much, just like just like Lynn's story, so much of her reality that came into fruition, it was from all the behavioral adaptation that she learned growing up, and so we so much of who we are, how we present ourselves to the world is just a combination of our habits and the things that we've learned at such a young age. So you're
learning how to leverage, right? Like, I mean,
yeah,
I'm in a sauna
absolutely.
every day.
Love
or
it.
I'm at Bikram yoga. And when I'm in a sauna, I'm like meditating. I'm just processing. And sometimes when I do my miracle morning ritual, I do what I call a supercharger bath: magnesium, magnesium, baking soda, essential oil, and then food grade peroxide, just that pumps up your immune system. And so for that 15 or 20 minutes, I can be listening to guided meditation. But I always read my affirmations around those 4 areas of my life, and it trains my brain how to think. And that's when you start noticing you're attracting more of it. Like when I used to have issues with my team, I go back years ago and think, I just have high expectations, and they have always been loyal, but I didn't like how I responded to them. I was too comfortable. And I remember just getting that message in the meditation: Steve, people matter more than things. And when I wanted to react to them or someone, I would hear people matter more than things, and learn how to love up on them. And that's what starts to happen when you train your brain how to think from the information that you're getting from the universe.
Yeah. I think beyond training the thinking too, it's what you spoke to before. It's the listening. We begin to listen to like the whispers of the soul, because it's always been speaking to us of what is important. And those moments in the morning and that solitude helps us to also redefine that conditioning, like redefine what is happiness. It's that alignment piece that you were speaking to earlier too. It's like what we do, what we think, and our actions, when they're all aligned, we are then stepping into that state of happiness. And when we're constantly in this not enough, needing more, projecting into the future, and almost like declaring to the universe that we don't have, we are then in a state of suffering. But in those moments when we're in the present, we can actually just acknowledge what we do have in that moment to, like you said, manifest, attract all the things. So I think those are important things for the listeners to really tune into, and how simple this actually is and how complicated at the same time because of our conditioning and the unlearning that needs to happen so we can relearn what our origin story actually is. And that could be like, even Mel Robbins talks about the high five habit in the morning. Like first thing in the morning, you look at yourself in the mirror and you give yourself a high five before all those thoughts come up of like, oh my gosh, I've gained weight, or look at the bags under my eyes, or look at all these things. But before that mind can operate from that unconscious place, we can consciously shift that with these habits.
That was beautiful. Wow. Another rewind for y'all.
We're just going to get little clips of you saying stuff like that and just have that as part of our morning mantra to ourselves.
I love it.
Just a little reminder of the greatness, right?
Gosh, you two know your stuff. I mean, no.
But you were saying something earlier, which I think is super important. So we do a lot of, in our clinic, we do a lot of EEG, it's a brain mapping. And we see the deficit in that frontal cortex. We see that these brain rhythms are stuck in that delta theta rhythm. So I'd love for you to, speak to, that state when we started to discover some of the dis-ease, the celiac, some of the celiac, the autoimmune stuff that was processing. No doubt that was influencing brain function, cognition, all those other things. But you tapped into something which was quite interesting, which not many people are talking about, and that's the quality of the things that you're using to heal yourself. So I would love for you to sort of speak to some of those hidden ingredients that people aren't really paying attention to, how that was wreaking havoc on the gut, and now how that was interfering with that processing, your ability to like dive in and uncover some of those triggering, little dialogues that were happening in the prefrontal cortex.
Yeah, I'll set this up by saying influence is so important, and finding your ideal experts. When I go back and I think of here I'm 43 years old. The year prior to that, of actually contracting this, and I have friends just saying, you got to do a show before you get older. You got to do a show. You got to do a show. And I just really wasn't that interested in that. And then I just made a decision. I was like, you know what? I want to be in the best shape of my life, physically, mentally, spiritually, and intellectually. And I thought, I'm going to do this show, and I'm going to happen to be the Mr. Oregon contest championship. And I picked a show. I didn't really know what it meant, but I just decided I was going to do the show. And so back then, there wasn't like 24-hour fitnesses and, big brand names, right? And so I'm just happened to have been led to this little gym where they had all these bodybuilders, and many of them, I did steroids. I didn't do steroids. I'm sure that they did, and that wasn't really my focus. And then I just hired I was led to this naturopath that worked with bodybuilders. So that was what I chose unconsciously. And then here I'm like saying, no, I'm not going to do steroids. And so they're giving me $850 a month on supplements. And I'm not realizing I'm stimulated in my mind. My belief is all supplements are good for you. And so I'm taking all this stuff, my body's starting to, completely tap in. And all of a sudden I'm like down this path of doing the show. And so I ended up winning, multiple categories. And then that's when that all happened. And so at that point, when everything started to change for me, I just had been led by Lynn to functional medicine. And that's when everything in my life started to change, because their whole process was completely different. I just made a decision I wasn't going to put any chemicals in my body. I got rid of all the household chemicals. I am tapped into a company by the name of Norwix. That was like amazing. And I ended up like completely learning how to detox. If I were to meet anybody at an airport, just to give you an example, because I fly all the time, and we just get conversation, we're sitting there and people are like, hey, can you give me some advice? And I'm like, yeah, it's pretty simple. 3 things: detox every day, like just sweat, just start to sweat. Get you sweat externally, internally, or both. Externally would be a sauna, internally would be cardio, and like Bikram yoga would be both. Second, go green, man. You don't have to think about all the ingredients, even though we've got an ebook that you can download, chemicals and toxins to avoid, body temple chemicals and toxins to avoid, and then the body temple shopping guide. And we show you and teach you how to shop. And so, but when you go green, like I'm a sprouter, it's just super easy. I have trays and I have, I just grow sprouts. That's what I do. And I do a nutrient smoothie every day. I have my first meal at 1. I do intermittent fasting from 8 p.m. until 1, but I'm having a like 35, 40 ounce big nutrient smoothie that's just packed with nutrition and seeds that are, even if you have diverticulitis, you know, they're blended up in the refrigerator, they're powder, and they just like elevate my immune. And then third, get rid of sugar. There's 68 bar-coded ingredients disguised as sugar. And 3 of those sweeteners are more toxic than a straight shot of 151 rum. Wow. Do you know how bad that is? No one could even take that down without gagging. And it's just, so in my journey, I just learned how to really care for my mind and my body and my spirit. And I used to be on a ton of supplements, but I usually, most everything that I eat is to heal. And I ended up going to finding a formulator that would create a chemical-free product for me. And so he did. And he was sending me like bags of like this pre-probiotic that would elevate my immune system, and this detox formula, and these digestive enzymes. And so after that, after about 9 months, I'm like, I think 9 months after I healed, it's about 3 years, I just decided I'm going to formulate my own gut and immune product. We only have 3 products. And I've been on podcasts because they have found me, they've said, your product line is like top 1%. Like it is truly chemical free. And even like the detox formula, it's not aggressive. It's like a maintenance. You know, I mean, I wake up in the morning and my waist is completely gone within an hour, but it's not like I have diarrhea, and meaning there are these harsh detox formulas that you just can't even leave your house. So you'll notice we have a free gift for you called the 15-day Kickstart Detox Plan. And in this program, there's 2 pathways. It's really a reset program for you to start to shift. What does that mean? There's 2 pathways: the choices you make and the products that you take. And the reset is, first of all, make a decision you're ready for change. And this 43-minute video will help you get to a point where you notice, am I really deep down ready for a change? And what does that mean? I'm ready to tap my feet in the water, or I know I want to take my health to the next level, or I'm sick. Even my test results say that I'm fine, but I'm manifesting something and I need to go the extra mile. Second, create your ideal wellness plan. But when we created this 43-minute video and this gut detox manual that took us 8 months, the problem was thinking about the different kinds of levels of people that we knew could not do what we did, that the elementary school, the junior high, or the high school. Like we just wanted to get people to create like their ideal customized plan from 3 different sections. And third, how to shift your poor habits to ideal habits. And so in all of that, mindset's the big piece, because when you start to notice you have a framework, you're going to have all these triggers come up, and serotonin and dopamine are a strange thing. They just kind of like they just have power over us, and you have to be gentle with yourself for a few months as you're starting to shift your poor habits to ideal habits. And then we throw in these 3 products that you can get at 35% off, 30-day money back guarantee. And really the one product is the Purify. Like if you're just like on a budget, it's nothing. Just to get that product for 15 days to help you start to really digest and get rid of your waste. And then the whole idea is that you start to create these habits and you start to design your daily, weekly, and monthly ideal health regimen.
Love it. You said so many really important things there. And one could argue it's like, hey, Steve, like you took all those supplements while you're getting ready for the show. Obviously it had impact. You won, like, but what was going on? Like, what was the difference that you noticed in having some of these supplements and maybe labeling some or telling people some of what those things, those fillers that are in some of these supplements, maybe just identifying some of those things. But how did you feel in your body when you started to actually learn this sort of green way of living? And what did you notice in your body? Like you said, the trim waistline, like the bloating must have disappeared, some of those things. But so we can identify some of those chemicals, what to look for, and then the body temple is the solution. These are the supplement lines that you're speaking to.
Can I add another layer to it?
Oh, of course you can.
Well, I think also mindset was different too when
Yeah.
you're taking these supplements, right? So when the bodybuilding, the intention is different than when you're healing something. So I'm curious about like even how you shifted that, because when I take my supplements, I'm always saying that this is something that's nourishing me, not depleting me.
Yeah.
And when you're getting ready for something, it's like you're not even thinking about what that's doing in that moment. You're thinking about the end game of like what that competition will look like. So just that journey, I think maybe defining that for us too, as you talk about the details.
Yeah, God, that's powerful. The one thing I always felt that I've done right is hire experts. I mean, that's how I've built, like when I hired Russell Brunson, it just exploded my business. I was in his mastermind group. He owns ClickFunnels. But what I didn't do right is ask enough questions. Like I always have said the same thing. I don't need to know all the details. I just need you to tell me what to do. I don't need to hear all the details of cut a bottle light. Just tell me what to do. So here I'm taking all these supplements, and I have always been I had always been a thin person. Like what led me to working out was being at an entrepreneur convention and the keynote speaker getting to the end and just saying, man, my heart goes out to all of you. Like, I feel like I'm guided to ask you this question. I mean, here, my dad was could have been semi-pro, man. He was just such an athlete. Both my brothers were athletes. I mean, he'd call me the most terrible names. You're a pussy. He would call me things like, why are you so fucking thin? Did I say that? And so I learned to just joke it like laugh. I don't care about it. I don't want to be an athlete. I'm cool. It's not my thing, And so I had a lot of pain about what my body looked like. I would never even have sex in the dark or in the light. I just, married to this beautiful woman that loved me, the way I was. But I wrote when she said, this keynote speaker ended just saying, what are you sick and tired of being sick and tired of? And I wrote, I hate my body. And my reunion was coming up in 6 months. And I went back, and Lynn is a dancer, owned a dance studio and choreographed and did, choreographed all and she led me to this Miss Olympia. She was top 10 Miss Olympia, which means bodybuilding. And she owned her and her husband owned this gym. So I just, went down that pathway. But in all of that, I got to circle back. I'm sorry, went on a tangent there. The products, I just started taking these products, and it definitely changed my physiology. And then, I'm over committed, over disciplined, never miss my cardio, never miss my posing. I'm working, 78 or 80 hours a week, traveling, doing following this diet to a T. And after I won the show, I just didn't even ask enough questions. What they do 24 hours, the week before and 24 hours before that show, I just couldn't even see that I would look the way that these other bodybuilders did, because I'm God, I look depleted. All of a sudden I'm eating cookies, and soy sauce and all this stuff. And then all this inflammation came afterwards. They said I could eat anything that I wanted. It was so bad on my body. But and I'd never done cardio. I didn't until my show, I just didn't need to. I was 6-7% body fat. But in all of that, what I want you to know is your body gives you signs. If I were the inflammation just started to build, but it was so slow. I thought I looked good, but I didn't notice how gradually my eyes were becoming puffy, my skin was becoming puffy. And then if I were to show you pictures of me today and 10 years ago, or better said, 12 years ago, when I started this, after I'd won my show, I look so much younger, but I did not know what to do. And that is where everything changed for me. Now I eat to heal. I really don't take a ton of supplements. I'm probably going to be on I don't know that I should, I'm just going to say it. I didn't get the vaccination. No, I don't think it's right for everybody. For my 82-year-old, 84-year-old mother. Yeah. If you have a job, yeah, that you need to get it, but there's ways of, and even that, how to get your body back to its natural state. But I never got COVID. I've been around so many people that had it, and I thought for sure I would end up getting it, but I never got it. And so this is the pathway. Just start to find that's why you're on the show. There are so many resources out there, but you've got to choose a handful of people that you follow, or you're going to get overwhelmed. And then if you really, my mom always said this to me, and it just always made sense to me. She always said to me, as a young entrepreneur, she said, success isn't on sale, honey. You're going to go to that seminar. God, it's like $499 and going back 35, 40 years ago. And she said, go. I've always invested. It's always been a 360 turnaround in my life. And I just tell everybody, man, if you want it, walk your talk, and you will show up. Make that investment in that course or that program or that product, because I just can't believe how much money people will spend on things that just do not bring you a return. And to have somebody in your back pocket like you two.
Well, Steve, you shared so many important things there. And I want to circle back, because you said something really powerful about your father. I mean, the impact of hearing, a dialogue. I mean, as a parent, you only need to say things once, and maybe it only came across once, but, even if it's on repetition, but all you need is to have that one pain point that defines so much of your reality. And then, to see, where you are now. There obviously must have been a massive shift in how you relate to your body. And to pair with that, I think what's really important is so much of how we define health is how we look at someone. Oh, you look healthy. You look fantastic on the outside. You must be healthy. So this whole attachment we have around what does health actually mean? Obviously that shifted in this whole dialogue too, but I would love to hear just where that took you. That statement your father made.
You two are incredible coaches. I know what it's like to get somebody in a trance where they are so downloading. And I feel that right now. I really want to acknowledge that. You two, I'm things that I just don't even think about all the time. My number one attribute is forgiveness. Yeah. And it brings up a lot of emotion, thinking my dad taught me how to raise my kid, because he didn't know what I know, what I know. And in all of that, I have the most happiest 24-year-old incredible kid, Lynn, who is my ex-wife and my best friend. Everybody thought we were married because we're always hanging out together. And God, we've changed people's lives just by being on the same page and having a healthy divorce, when he was 6. And the forgiveness that it's just easy for me to forgive someone. And I'm just remembering the day, that first coach I hired, that I just didn't know why I wasn't happy. And I remember getting into Carolyn Mace's program, Energy Anatomy, and showing up at the house. One night, after a gig that I did, I went out and bought a candle. It was pouring out rain, and ended up driving to this house I lived at, as a kid. And I guess just from Carolyn Mace, just listening to her, how to get rid of all that energy, and lit that candle and forgave my dad. And what he taught me deep down were things that I just know have been blessings in my life, because they taught me to do the opposite. And so, yeah, this whole journey can be a beautiful thing if you just allow. I think when we're in our logic, like I love Melanie Lair. God, I love Melanie Lair. Logic and energy. You know, they're it's like you got 1 foot in heaven and you got 1 foot in the world. And when you are believing you are going to be guided and you don't have to figure it out, all the situations and people, and it's not by chance that like I didn't know being on these podcasts that my favorite part of it was what you said in the beginning, that I would meet these incredible people that would forever change my life. I didn't know that.
Amen.
There's so many gifts and challenge that we often don't see unless we've gone through such a journey of like self-reflection. And I think the one thing that stands out in your story for me is that going from having this extrinsic doubts or these things, you know, mirroring for us what the insecurities in our bodies and all these things, because it kind of, they defined us for so long because of that conditioning, we lose trust in ourselves and our ability to be able to heal, to present ourselves in the world from our truest essence. But the more we move through the journey, we begin that self-trust journey. And then that's where the forgiveness can come in, because we are no longer attached to that other individual's story anymore, or their conditioning and what they've put onto us. Because like you said, they were doing the best that they could with the knowledge that they had. And now that we have a separate set of knowledge, we can now hear those whispers again that we were just talking about in that miracle morning that you set out for yourself.
I love that. Yeah. Well, and all that's going to be in that 43-minute video. And I just, you know, if you, those of you that are really thinking you're ready for change, the greatest gift we can give you is that 43-minute video. And you're going to see and hear Lynn, who, you know, what was amazing about that video, there was not one edit that needed to happen. Like she is what Joe Dispenza talks about in his, the 50,000 people that he did that whole case study on how they healed, and they had a death sentence, meaning they were like 6 months to live, whatever that is. And our son Quinn and I often talk about that. Mom's just not the same person. She's not, like, you know, we know her, but she's just so evolved and chill and tapped in and like exudes love and present, but she goes into the plan. So that's what you're going to experience with her. And the ebooks that were all inspired by her, all her vast knowledge, are incredible. So it's easy. BodyTempleKickstart.com. You probably see it in the show notes. Yeah. Name of the company is Body Temple. My only tattoo. That's what I got when I healed myself. And then Kickstart is that 15 days to kickstart you into the bigger version of what you're going to manifest and create in your life. So BodyTempleKickstart.com. And you'll notice when you go to enroll in that you have an opportunity to add your cell number. We get hundreds of emails every week saying, I didn't get the link. Email is just not always reliable. So it just says, enter your cell number if you'd like us to text it to you. And then there's 5 steps under the video. And you'll notice that step 1 is to fill out a 3-minute take charge of your health evaluation. Why is it 3 minutes? Because we've thought of everything you would want or not want, and it will, excuse the expression, spit out a report, and it will wake you up. It's just worth taking. You end up with this assessment in 3 minutes. You're just going down, clicking the boxes, and you'll know what you want and what you don't want. So that's the beginning. Because
what an important place to start for people. I mean, so many people don't, it's such an important place for people to start. Most people with this big overwhelm looming with regards to like their health, you know, they don't know where to start. You know, so it gives them a place.
All of our coaches reach out when people jump into the Kickstart, and they will offer to support them with some complimentary resources. And they will do what we call a 30-minute take charge of your health, body and mindset strategy session. And they do it to help people. They're all, and ironically, everyone in our coaching division has gone through some kind of adversity, and they are compelled to pay it forward. And so that's where they can lead you. And you'll notice that we have 3 main ebooks that come with that Kickstart program. And the Kickstart Detox Manual it's just a resource on everything that we've been talking about and more. Like, a lot of people don't even, water sourcing is just so important. People don't even get it. Like, your water source and the amount of water you put in your body, half your body weight in ounces. It's so it just is a guide that it's all in writing. You'll hear part of that in that 43-minute video, but the Kickstart Detox Gut Manual is a guide on how to create a process. It just, that alone, in that many vast pages, will just educate you on everything that we've talked about during this interview.
That's amazing. So basically, we can send people to the link. We'll put it in the show notes for everybody, so you can tune in there. It's very clear, step by step, on what you need to do in order to start to take charge of your health. Steve, you also have a podcast too. You do want to? Yeah,
actually, it's an entrepreneur. I had a podcast. Yeah, I had.
Oh, you had a okay. Yeah.
I had this entrepreneur podcast for about 3 years, and after I got sick, I couldn't really keep up with it. But in all of that, I couldn't believe we had. It was before I think the podcast started to kind of really grow into large numbers, and in just about 3 months, we had about 60,000 downloads a month.
Amazing. Well, this goes to show that you've got a big message to share, and people need to tune in.
I just had a lot of awesome clients that just shared it. I couldn't believe it. It was like, wow.
So on the topic of messages, Sonya always likes to leave with a question. So it ends up being a message for the listeners. So
So in closing, what I'd love to, and we dove into some deep things here and unraveled some limiting beliefs and all of that. And as we move through our journey, we often have this imprint that we want to leave behind. And what if you knew that tomorrow was your last day in this physical body, in this physical form on earth? What is the imprint that you would like to leave?
What a profound question. Know thyself. You have been created in the image and likeness of your creator. And when you get to know yourself, it is truly the highest form of personal power. I used to just get manipulated. How do I say, or buy into things, or be coaxed and not make the true decision. And just that phrase constantly, like that journey since I have been 32, like really understanding who I am. And I remember, like, when I just was depressed and tired and thinking, God, my life, why do I feel this way? My life looks so great from the outside. I have everything that I ever would have wanted. And just praying for understanding. And this friend of mine, Holly, showed up at my house. She was in my organization, successful at something else. I had a sales organization, and she had made all these changes in her life and like lost a lot of weight. I hadn't seen her for 8 months. And I just said, how'd you do this? She said, I hired a coach. I said, like a fitness coach? She said, no, I hired this life coach. And I often think about when she said, just call her, she'll do a session. And I often think, what if I never would have called her? That one decision changed my life forever. And in just 4 sessions, I had created this life based on the illusion of what I thought other people thought of my success. I didn't know who I was. And that's why I had all this internal challenge. I didn't know what made me happy. I remember I just didn't even know how to have fun. It was all about achievements and accomplishments and helping people. And when you start to know yourself, you can just confidently say to people, I love to help, but I can't. Or not getting a green light. People try to coax me all the time. Or like, I'll just say, so you got an agenda for me? What's going on? What do you mean? Well, you obviously have an agenda for me. What do you want? And so you just start to notice you can respond without reacting, I'm just like, I'm not getting a green light on it. Sorry. What do you mean? It's just a barbecue. I can't make it. Come on. I just think we all want to get to that point where we just don't even question what we want to do. And the people that love us stay in our area. And if they don't get it, walk away from anything that doesn't serve you anymore.
Wow. That's a healing message right there. Yeah. Know thyself. That's powerful. Yeah. You draw to you that which is serving your evolution, your growth, and everything else just becomes irrelevant. I love it.
I can't wait to share your book and the podcast and anything else with our several thousand followers. You two are magic. I'm just like, this made my day. Like,
thank you. Thank you for sharing with us.
Yeah.
And being so open, and your energy too. Thank you,
Steve. So everybody, Steve Wiltshire, check out the website and the show notes. He's a gift. Absolutely. It's a message that when you shine your light, you're living on purpose. And so thank you for sharing your purpose with us.